Welcome back, everyone, to the Horrorshed Podcast. I'm your co-host, Jared. We have Brian down there. How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing good, just trying to warm up.
Word up. We have a special
Yes.
guest today, too, don't we?
Yes, we do. We have a Miss Ashley Paige who I met earlier in January, and we're going to dive into a lot of great conversations with her because she has lots of cool stuff that she does. But before we get to that, let's just talk about who we lost since our last recording. And I had talked to you off air that I felt it was really eerie that when we recorded with Greg and Chris last Friday, we were talking about the Addams family, and then the next day, Lisa Lourning, who's the original Wednesday Addams, passed away at the young age of 64. So
I know, it was crazy.
it was very crazy. We lost another icon in the horror genre. Today, we lost another horror icon, George P. Wilbur, who, if you are a Halloween fan, he was Michael Myers in not only Halloween Part 4, but he came back again for The Curse of Michael Myers. And not horror related, but we lost Lanny Poffo, aka The Genius. If you're a wrestling fan, he was also, I think he was the older brother of Macho Man. I'm not sure who was older, who was younger, but again, if you're a horror or a wrestling fan, that's another icon that we lost. But I'm hoping, knock on wood, we're going to move away from today and hopefully we'll have a better 2023. So let's get to our very special guest.
Let's do it.
All right. So we have Ashley Paige, who I talked to her last month, and that's one of the questions that we'll get into. But talking with her back in January, I was just amazed of all the awesome things she's a part of. So, Jared, let's start it.
Let's do it. So you met our world famous South Jersey Jason on Friday the 13th back in January this year.
Yes.
What is your first memory of being introduced into this beautiful horror genre?
Oh God. So growing up in a witchcraft home, my mom was very based on just like horror movies. Like it's kind of unnatural. And the amount of murder documentaries is not healthy that I've seen. But growing up, I think honestly, watching a lot of murder documentaries was the first thing she introduced me to because she was like, sit down. If you don't listen to me, this is what's going to happen. Like the world's dangerous. So I was like traumatized at first. But the first scary movie she actually introduced me to was two movies in one night, was Ghost Ship and 13 Ghosts.
Okay.
Surprisingly.
I think Ghost Ship has one of the best openings of any horror movie.
It was something.
Yeah. I mean, it was I like stories about that, like the ghost ships. You you have like the Queen Mary, and I'm sure there's so many, but just that opening scene where the captain just gets sliced with the wire, like 13 Ghosts. I learned to love it. It was I don't know. It was cool. I wish we got a prequel maybe of the backstory of the other ghosts. That would have been great.
Yeah, for sure.
So in speaking with you, and you had just also mentioned it, you have a lineage of witches on both sides of your family. How did you find this out?
I started to realize that something was different with me around the age of 4. I lived in this house with my mom and her old boyfriend. And at this point, I never met my father. I didn't know that side. He was like, I'm out beforehand. So when I'm sitting in the room, I would always see this lady with like long black hair and a yellow sundress. And I would like tell my mom, like, oh, there's a lady in yellow sundress and she plays with me. And I had this, your basic horror movie setting too. I had a rocking chair in the middle of my room. And I remember as a little girl, like watching her rock back and forth in there and just staring at me. But it wasn't like I never got creeped out. It was more of like a comforting feeling. And then my mom was like, I don't know. You might be gifted. I don't know though. It's so young to say because my mom can see the future and my grandmother saw the future and saw dead people as well. So she was kind of like, oh, it's a possibility. Then the one night I'm sitting there and we had this long hallway and the light was always broken at the end. There was something with the electrical, such an old house. And I used to roll the ball down the hallway and the ball would come back to me. And I would just do it for hours, just playing with this lady. And then finally, my mom saw her one day and saw the exact description that I was saying. And she was like, okay, this is a little freaky. So we went to our neighbor's house and it was this tiny little old lady. And she brought out the shoebox and literally pulled out a picture of the lady in a yellow sundress with long black hair. She actually committed suicide in my bedroom. because she couldn't have kids.
Wow.
So it was creepy.
So what when she committed suicide, what year was that around, do you know?
Oh, I don't know that anymore.
Was it like
No.
a very old photo, like an old timey photo, or like would you say like 50s, 60s?
Probably gotta be maybe 50s for sure. Had to have been.
Okay,
This like,
wow.
or maybe 60s, because she looked kind of hippie-ish the way her like aesthetic
Okay.
was.
And you no longer live in this house, correct?
No, she moved
Okay.
after that.
Okay. So now how can I base my next question? So you obviously could see the other side. So would
Yes.
you say you're like Haley Joel Osment from The Sixth Sense? I see dead people.
Um, a little bit, but honestly, the easiest way I can describe it to people is ghost whisperer.
Okay.
They
Okay.
literally, I don't see them in full form, like, you know what I mean? I don't sit there with conversations with them and like go and have a coffee, but it's like that. They come to me for a reason. Like I never go searching, because I notice when you go searching, that's when it's like, I did that already once before being part of a paranormal investigation group. I've done that. So I was like,
Right.
no. And I let them come to me naturally now. So I guess that's just
Do they ever come at awkward times, like when you're getting your nails done, or
um not really. It seems to be the most is when I'm in people's houses, because it's always that, hey, I want them to know this. Hey, like I'm stuck in the in-between stage. Like I'm not alive, but I don't want to move on. Like I need you to, tell them to let me kind of go. So it's
okay.
like I'm in that awkward situation where I'm like, hi, I don't know if you believe in this, but Mary
Right,
Jo and
right.
Bob over there just wants to go. So it's a lot of people like it. I actually offer pendulum paranormal readings where I can open up a portal and talk to people's past
Okay,
loved
yeah,
ones.
and I believe that's one of my questions that we'll get to in a second. But I really want to talk
Mm-hmm.
about your lineage of witches.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, when did you come to find out about that?
So after growing up, I was then in public school for a little bit, and I would go to like the bathroom and I would hear voices, constant voices like whispering and things like that. And I would go tell my teachers and like the other students, like, oh, there's a dead person in the bathroom. And it caused like an uproar. And people were like, oh my God, did someone die in the bathroom? They'd run in there, there's no one there. So they went to my mom and they're like, we think your daughter, is a little crazy. Like, we think she needs therapy. And my mom's like, no, not really, because, this is part of our background. Like, our family's like this. So I was a little confused. And my mom would always be like, Ashley, it's good to be open, but sometimes maybe don't be that open to strangers. She's like, because a lot of people could think you're crazy, or, you could cause an uproar for people. So I think it really, really started to hit home when I turned 16. And I was like, okay, now I'm learning on my own. Now I'm practicing it more. Now I have books. Now I have, I've met like-minded people, because I didn't know my other side of my family. I only knew my mom and like my grandma. So I learned a little bit from them, but I really went off kind of full force on my own and practiced, like from learning from other people. I was also in a few different covens as well. So I had different people guide me through. And then between the paranormal investigation, it kind of just came full circle. And I've tried in the past, I was like freaked out, and I kind of strayed away from myself. And I was like, I don't want to be a part of it. But no matter what I did, it came back. And I was like, you know what? We're embracing it. This is who I am. And I'm not going to like hide it anymore. We're just going to full send it.
Now, do you have relatives that perhaps were from Salem, or is it more this area? Have you looked at?
My mom, so our family came from Germany and they
Okay,
came over. I do believe that we had some kind of relative in Salem, if I'm not mistaken, but I do know that King Charlemagne is our ancestor, on my
I've
mom's
heard of
side.
that name. So if you want to
Yeah.
refresh my memory, who was King Charlemagne?
He was some kind of like royal king back when, of Germany, but he was actually also the guy who was hanging witches.
Oh,
But
okay.
then back then, there was someone in the family who was, and he was like, I don't want to kill my own.
Hmm.
So it was kind of like this, what do I do situation? And he actually dethroned himself and said, I don't want to be involved with any of it. And kind of just, rest is history. I guess he just kind of went into his own thing and lived a normal life after that, because
Okay.
weird. But here I am.
What's the biggest misconception people have about witches?
Oh, I get it all the time. The first thing everyone asks me is, one, do I worship Satan? And 2, do I sacrifice baby goats in the forest at night? Constantly.
I guess you do neither then, right?
No.
Okay.
No, not at
So
all.
if you had to choose a movie that best resembles the practice of witchcraft, is there a movie that someone could watch and be like, oh, okay, this is what it's about?
Um, it's kind of like a mixture, actually, a little bit of a few different things. Like you have Charmed.
Mhm.
Obviously I'm not fighting demons on the daily, but their practice, like speaking to past loved ones, bringing them through. I do that with my grandma a lot, which I still don't understand how she's able to do that, because in the world of like the dead, like you're supposed to pass and you're not supposed to be resummoned. Like once you move on to that higher place, no one can reach it. But some reason she passes through, and I don't know how she does it. I'm still very mind blown, and I want to ask like other professionals about that, because I've never heard of it. It's not supposed to happen, but I'm thinking maybe because the witchcraft blood in her, maybe she found like a loophole or something. But I think between that, a lot of the spells that they do in that book, but then also practical magic, a lot of the kitchen witchery. I do a lot of like potions
Okay.
and like self-love candles and crystals and all that. So it's
Yeah, which I'm going to talk about a little bit
there's so many
later
different
on.
movies that kind of like they
Right.
always
But
Hollywoodize it.
just so that we know, you're not luring children in the woods to stay youthful,
No.
correct? Okay.
No, I just unfortunately look very young for someone who feels very old.
Jared, do you have any questions for this, in addition to this question here?
Thousands, but I'll continue with this.
Well, if you have any off the book questions about this one, question we have, let's go for it.
I lost it, so I'll come back to that.
Okay.
You also, actually, I do have a question. So everyone brings up the Salem witch trials as like the biggest travesty for witches, which isn't really true. Apparently, in England and Germany, they hung like 17 times the amount of witches.
Oh yeah.
Is that correct? Okay? That's what I remember reading that. So when you said you were from German Limited, that popped into my head.
Yeah.
So you also mentioned that you use a pendulum to South Jersey Jason here, and that you have a huge connection with it. Is it a family heirloom, or where did the pendulum come from?
So the pendulum is a divination tool that you can either use for yourself as a higher self, like whatever god or goddess you preach to will help you kind of guide you in the right direction, or you can use it to quote unquote open up a portal to kind of connect to the other side, kind of like a Ouija board, but I'm against the Ouija board. In witchcraft, a lot of witches will tell you that they don't believe in the Ouija board. It's something that you stay away from. It's more of like a cursed object versus a divination. I had my first pendulum. I went to a little witch store, and it's called the Amber Dragon in Branchville. And I went there and I was talking to her a little bit and I was learning more about it. And I went to like her coven meetings and things like that. She's such a awesome like witch mother. And I was like, all right, but she didn't have them there. So I was like, I'm interested in learning, because once you connect with that pendulum, it's literally your friend for life. And there's actually ways to care for it, ways to talk to it. It eventually will retire and stop working for you. And then you have to get a new one. There's a bunch of different things with it. So when I was interested, I went to another shop by Milford, Pennsylvania, because that's like a little witch village too. A lot of people don't know that, but it's like there's a lot of witch things over there. So I go there a lot, and you're supposed to have a line of them, like a huge bunch, because you don't pick your pendulum, the pendulum picks you. So I picked the ones that caught my eye first, and you're supposed to like hold it like from one end to another, and you're supposed to ask it like, what is your yes? It spins a certain way, and then you ask, what is your no? And it'll spin a different way. And then you ask, can I own you? If it tells you no, you can't sell it to that person, because it'll just bring you bad luck. It won't work for you. So I went through all 20, but the last one picked me. And ever since then, it was like, I've been spot on with everyone's reading that I've done, because I've done a lot of people's readings, and I brought people to tears. I brought people to talk to their kids, to their parents. Like, it's creepy, but it's cool creepy at the same time, because I'm able to help people with their closure, what I like a lot.
Okay. Yeah, and which we'll talk about that a little later on, because that's another question down the line. But when you're talking about your pendulum, I automatically just thought of like the wands in Harry Potter.
So did I. I'll be honest.
So
Yep.
that's okay. So you keep it like when you're not using it, do you keep it like in a little box or some type, or do you keep it out? Like
It depends. You have to ask it. Honestly, it sounds absolutely crazy, but I have a huge altar on my mantle of my fireplace in my bedroom, and I have this like wooden box. I don't even know where this wooden box came from. I found it in my attic. I don't know who it belongs to, and I found it, and I was like, this is really pretty, and I cleaned it off, and it has all velvet inside. And I asked my pendulum, would you like to rest here? It's the best way because you have to be very specific. Because if you're not specific, you're going to get a false reading. So I asked it like, would you like to rest here when I don't use you? And it swung yes. So I was like, all right. So I keep it there, and for some reason it doesn't like the box closed though. The box has to stay open. So it just stays open all the time on my mantle if I'm not using it at all.
okay. Now, can anyone be a witch, or is it more something like you where you had this lineage?
You can actually have both. So it's like if you're interested in it, you can walk the path for the craft, or you could be born into it. It's kind of just your preference. There's so many different terms of witches.
Mhm.
I'm a free-spirited green witch, so I don't specifically stick to one god or goddess. I do celebrate all the Wiccan holidays and I honor that god or goddess on that holiday. But half the time, if I'm, I believe in God too. So it's like there's no right or wrong answer in witchcraft. And that's why it's really cool to meet other witches, because there's no set stone, like you have to do this, you have to do this, like you have to go on, Sundays. And it's so natural, and like everyone has a different path of it. So, that's just, I guess, the best way to describe it. There's just multiple different ways of witchcraft, and it's just the path of figuring out what fits your needs the best.
Now, how many Wiccan holidays are there in a year?
There's 8 Sabbats.
Wow, okay. I only know the one. That's how, naive I am to the practice.
Yeah.
So what's the biggest month? Would you say it's October or?
I guess it depends on your preference, really. I mean, you have I love Mabon. Mabon's like the fall, like, because the Sabbats are meant to be, you honor Mother Earth, and it's like, so when it's Mabon, it's the last harvest, so you thank Mother Earth for the abundance of food, because now you're going into the death stage of life, which is winter. You don't get a lot of harvest because obviously back then you couldn't just go to your local shop, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're supposed to thank for the crops and thank Mother Earth for the abundance and the food, and then you'd go through your dark stage, and then you have Samhain, where you honor the dead, like your past loved ones. Then you have coming around the circle again, now we're honoring the sun. Like there's different, it goes mostly by the phases of like the month for nature is the best way to describe it.
Okay.
So we really just said that Christmas is the dark time, right? So we should not celebrate that anymore, right?
No, you could for sure.
I'm okay.
Jared is anti-Christmas.
Yeah.
She said it. I'm just sitting here.
Earlier, you mentioned covens. So how did you find the covens? Now it's easier because we have social media, but going back 35 years or more, there was no internet. So
yeah.
How did you come across these covens?
I went to the local witch stores for crystals, to buy crystals, to also see about different things to buy in my house, like black salt. I run out of black salt relentlessly because it's a home protection. You put in all your windows.
I thought that was white salt though.
That's to protect in a circle for a summoning.
Okay, gotcha.
But you can use black salt's better, but it's a little stronger. It's more to prevent evil, so to say.
Gotcha.
So I stopped that right at my doors. No one's getting in here.
So you put it on so you do that once a week, you said?
Yes, every Sunday.
Now I can see you have animal beds behind you. Do you have cats? Do they mess up your salt lines?
No.
Okay, that's good.
They kind of learn to stay away from it. They sniff it and they're like, oh, it's salt, smells gross.
Oh, okay. So it's a deterrent to them. So they don't mess it up. Okay, so with your covens, are you currently with a coven now?
I'm not. I was in one, had left because of COVID, left because then it was so far away and I ended up losing my car. And then I started my own, and then it became just a lot of people were the timing didn't frame up, or we didn't know where to meet, because obviously you need like a place to meet up and things. I mean, I started a witchcraft business now, and I do plan on opening a storefront where I can host then meetings with people,
Okay.
but I'm not there quite yet.
Oh,
It's pretty new.
okay. So do you think the popularity of witches has grown within the past 10 to 15 years with like the you said the Charmed or movies? Do you think it's more popular than it was before?
Oh God, yeah. Oh God,
Yeah.
yeah. There's the amount of witches that I meet daily is insane, because there's the big in New Jersey, we have the big lunar fair, and they sell out at least 2,000 tickets every event. So
Wasn't
it's
that in
a big
Atlantic
event.
City just not too long ago?
Yep.
Okay, which we'll get
Yep.
to in a that's like one of our questions that just
Mhm.
reminded me because my friend actually went to that. Her and her
Mhm.
daughter went to that. So when you have your meetings, what would go on during these meetings?
It depends. A lot of it's meditation. A lot of people think that, like, you're doing crazy things, but half the time it's really about it's the natural way of life. So instead of me going on all these pills for anxiety, I take a natural route through meditation or through crystal healing or chakra balancing. Because I used to be on medication years ago. And I was never like a suicidal person like that. I just had anxiety, and I was like, there has to be something I can do to just take the edge off of me, to not feel so anxious all the time. And of course, nowadays they're like pills, trial and error pills constantly. And I was like, whatever. And I ended up, having suicidal thoughts. And I was open about it because I was like, that's not who I am. And I was telling my mom, I was like, there's something weird. And she's like, take yourself off those pills. Like, it was a high doses of Prozac. And I was like, all right, yeah, we're not taking these. And I told him, I said, listen, like, thank you, but no. And that's when I really full force in 2019 was like, all right, I'm taking as natural route as I can. So these meetings, she would do meditation circles where all the witches would get in the circle, surrounding this big crystal like display that she would have made. The one that stuck with me the most was the spiral that she made. It's small crystals going into a big crystal and then going back into a small crystal. The point of it is that you're supposed to meditate and kind of have an outer body experience of, hey, in life you have small parts, then you get a little bit bigger, you have a great part, but it doesn't mean that it's going to stay that way forever. With every negative comes a positive. So we believe in the power of three. So that's where the whole charmed power of three came
Okay.
from, is in the witchcraft community. Is if you do three things that are positive, the universe will grant you 3 times back. Or if you do something negative, negative times 3 times back. So the whole point of that is supposed to be where you're supposed to go into meditation of, where do you see yourself in life? Where is it going to bring you? So everyone at the end, you can choose to say what you experienced, and all of us had a different experience. And it was really cool to hear like everyone's little stories that they had. Like, it was so different from mine, at least.
So when the general person think of witches, it's usually a female. But can a male be considered a witch, or is that a warlock?
It's preference. Some guys
Okay.
call them witches, sometimes they call them warlocks. It's just really what they like to. A lot of guys are like, warlock sounds cooler, so they choose warlock half the time.
When I think of warlock, I think of Julian Sands. God rest his soul. Hopefully he's okay, but we'll see. You've heard about that, right, Jared?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, unfortunately, but that was my introduction to the term warlock. So, all right, Jared, you want to go with the next question?
Yeah, because this actually fits something I'm going through right now. Right now is Transworld, the haunted attraction convention. It's the biggest.
Oh.
It's the biggest haunt convention in the world, and I'm missing it, but that's okay. So, speaking of conventions, we also have horror conventions, all kinds of conventions. Is there a convention for witches?
Not really, but I would love to see one. I would love to see one. The biggest one is probably Lunar Fair. They were the first 2 girls or women that had came together and said, there's a huge population of witches nowadays. I mean, thousands. It's in the millions at this point. And it's not even, some people, a lot of them are just not born into it. A lot of them are like, I want to become. So they'll take their own path of whatever which way they choose. But it's just cool that there's so many, but I wish that there was a huge convention for
now.
witches.
This might come off as dickish, but that's me. How many do you think really want to try it, or how many do you think are just trying to be cool?
So it's funny because it's funny you mentioned that because literally there you can tell the difference. You
Yes.
can tell the difference now, and it's funny. My favorite thing is when I go to any kind of public setting, whether it's a festival or like a bar or anything. I have a half sleeve of like my witchcraft stuff, and then a girl will come up to me and she's like, "Oh my god, like you believe in witchcraft?" And I'm like, "Yes, I am one." And she's like, "Well, my zodiac sign," and I'm like, all right, we're done. Goodbye. It's the first thing I always hear is about the zodiac signs. And honestly, no witch really cares about them.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
So I'm guessing like the wannabes, do they come like can you spot them a mile away? Like the
Oh yeah.
wannabes?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. It's the basic. It's funny because you have the basic bitch, and then it's like in witch terms it's basic witch, and you have the girls that are like, I'm wearing the amethyst, which is a great crystal, but again, it's your most heard one. They're like, I love rose quartz and I do yoga, and you know, it's so funny. And I'm like, okay, well, what about this, that, and the third? And they look at me, and I'm like, come on, like, you know. So it's funny. Guys too, though. It's constantly a pickup guy for guys too. They're like, oh, you're dark and mysterious, right? And I'm like, no, I do naked yoga in my backyard. There's nothing dark and mysterious about it. Like.
So have you been to the what's it called? The
Lunar Fair.
Lunar Fair. Have you been to it?
Oh yeah, multiple
Yeah.
times. I've
So
ended there.
what okay, so what can now it's open to everyone really. It's not just
Mhm.
for so
No.
what can if I was to go, what can I expect?
Awesome time.
Oh
Honestly.
yeah.
They have a lot. They have the potion bar, which you go up and make your own potion drink. It either sparkles or it smokes. They have different rituals. They have you can dance around the ribbon. They also only do it on the full and new moon, which there's rituals for that as well. There's endless vending. I mean, every vendor has a bunch of like really, really cool, unique things because a lot of it's homemade. And then you have a lot of readers. But I always tell people to be weary on readers because a lot of them are scams. And I've called them out plenty of times. So a lot of readers don't really have a huge liking to me because I call them out.
Yeah, there's us growing up on the Jersey Shore, I'm sure Jared can attest to this. In Ocean City, they had them on the boardwalk. Atlantic City, they have them on the boardwalk. I remember I was maybe like my senior year of high school. My friend and I, we went in because we never done it before, and the woman, she had like that accent, and I forget what it. I mean, she didn't. I don't know if she did cards or not, but I don't remember. But I just remember, oh, you have a family curse, but for another $100, I can wipe it out for you. I was like, oh no, I'm good.
The Gypsy Special.
Yeah.
That's what we called it. The Gypsy Special.
Yeah, those
Yeah.
people are very annoying because it gives a bad name.
Right, to the people that are real and
Mhm.
are not scam artists. But yeah,
Yeah.
they used to be at the horror conventions, but not so much anymore. I didn't see them at the last one I went to, but they were like a fixture at NJ Horror Con.
Mhm.
All right, so
Now
let's
we're gonna wait real quick. I want to continue
okay,
with this
what do you got?
witches. Have
Okay.
you been to Salem?
Yes, I know Salem like the back of my hand. I actually know Salem better than I know my own hometown.
Apparently, so does my wife, but we'll get into that later.
Mhm.
So have you been to the Salem Witch Trials Museum?
Yes.
What is your thought process on them having that in a church?
It was weird. I thought it was awkward. I was like, this doesn't, because there's no church for witches. So I was like, it was a little weird. And then it just, they had the creepy red circle in the mirror.
Yes.
And I'm like, like, that's not what it is. Like, and I'm looking at it and I'm like, the pentagram's upside down. That's not even our symbol. I'm like, what are you guys doing? Like, it's wrong. So again, I wasn't really a fan of that place, to be honest with you.
No, it was poorly done for the amount of money that place brings in. I think it could have been a lot better. But
Yeah.
the fact that, I mean, these women were hung because of the church, and you're gonna put their memorial in a fucking church?
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
what?
Yeah,
As soon as I walked up, there's thousands of people out there. I'm like, why is this in a church?
Yeah. Oh yeah. That was like I just finished watching the Dahmer series where they're like, oh, we want to bulldoze the building down, but we want to honor those people who were gruesomely murdered there. And I'm like, why? Stop doing that to people. Let them rest and just don't leave it alone.
They still didn't build that park.
No, they never did, thank God. And I'm happy about it.
That was
I wouldn't want to be there.
Yeah, Salem was a really cool town, and I enjoyed it. It was a fun time. But the church thing, the memorial is beautiful with the giant slabs of rock for everyone that was killed. And then we actually even flew by where they actually hung everyone. And there's a nice memorial now that they just built like 2 years ago. It took you this long?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, I don't know if Brian showed you the picture. I actually captured a woman hung in one of the trees.
I don't have that picture.
Did I not send that one to you? Oh crap!
That's all right.
Okay. Do you want? Yeah. Shoot. Do you want to talk about that picture? I totally forgot to send it to Jared.
Yeah. Actually, the first time I went there, those slabs around where you can like honor it. That grass and that tree was one of the most famous hanging trees.
Right.
That I found out when I went there, but I didn't know that prior. I just thought it was a plot of land. I didn't know that that's where it was. I was looking for it too, but I was there anyway, so I didn't know. When I stepped on it, I dropped my phone and I was like, I can't breathe. And I started going to a panic attack and I was like, why can't I not breathe? And then I like left and a woman comes out of like a building, like running to me. She's like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I think so. Why? And she's like, are you gifted? Like, are you a witch? Do you feel that? Like, do you feel people died? And I'm like, yeah, strange lady, how do you know this? And she's like, well, that's where they hung like the witches. And I saw you holding like your throat. The one thing I love about Salem is that everyone's friendly.
Yes.
Like overly friendly. And then I turned around and I took the picture and then clear as day, you see her like hanging in a tree.
Oh, wow.
Like in the picture.
Yeah, Brian, it's in a weird spot. It's like next to a Rite Aid. So like unless you know what happened there, you wouldn't know what it was. It's not on the beaten track. It's not because Salem's like 2 streets and then like that's it. And
Cobblestone.
Then cobblestone, a couple museums, a lot of shops, and then really that's all of the Witch of Salem. But then you can walk there, but you have to get in your car, and then you can't park anywhere. So literally, they just made it. It's like a big stone circle with the names of the people hung. So if you didn't know what you were looking for, you wouldn't know what the hell it was. It's like literally you can hit Rite Aid with a rock.
Oh wow. That's weird. I wonder if Rite Aid ever has any experiences of like the registers acting up.
Oh,
or
probably.
I wonder.
The activity.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Wouldn't doubt it.
So, Jared, do you have any more questions about witches before we move on to the next topic?
Not right now, but I'm sure it'll pop up.
All right. So, for now, we'll change topics and we're going to switch it over to your other interest, the paranormal. If you ask most investigators, they'll say that they had an experience that made them want to be an investigator. So, you already had that experience as a young child seeing the woman. Was there anything else that led you to want to become an investigator?
There was so many different times. I think the one that really stuck to me is that I ended up, there's a graveyard not far from my house and it's very small, very small. And I was always drawn to it for some reason and I never understood why. And when I went there, it was like a sadness I felt. And all these tombstones were either broken or crumbled in piles and you couldn't read them. It was overgrown. And I'm like, that's really disrespectful. Like, these people are here to rest and like you're going to treat it like it's like a dumping ground. And there was trash everywhere and it just bothered me a lot. And I randomly in the middle of the night got up and I went there for no reason at all. I was like, I gotta go. And I walked around and I was like, I'm kind of like, I'm speaking to the air and I'm like, I'm sorry that you guys live like this. This is really sad. So literally 4 years go by and my mom is hosting a paranormal like event for our animal rescue that we run. And we had a bunch of mediums and all different people here. And this woman goes up to my mom and she's like, oh, I'm from New York City. I'm this person, blah, blah. And she's like, I don't want to scare your daughter. I don't know if she believes in this, but there's a woman, Mary, that's attached to her. And my mom was like, oh, no, my daughter's actually really into it. You should go and tell her. And she's like, okay, yeah, she doesn't leave your daughter's side. And my mom was like, all right, cool. So the woman came up to me and told me, and she's like, do you live by a small graveyard? And I was like, yes, I do. Like, I've never met this woman in my life, and she was all the way from the city, and I don't live close to the city. So, she was continuous talking, and she was like, Mary needs your help. And I'm thinking, how the hell am I going to find this? Like, what am I going to do? Um, so I end up, she's like, wherever that small graveyard is by your house, you need to go back. And my mom's like, oh, I wonder if that's the one you're attached to. And I'm like, oh, that would make a lot of sense. So we go on my 21st birthday, and I'm walking around. I'm like, Mary, I'm like, where could you be? Like, can you give me a sign? I'm like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do here. My mom's like, do you see anything? And I'm like, not yet. And all of a sudden, I felt this like tap on my shoulder, and I turn around and I'm standing on her grave. Mary died in 1811. She died on her 21st birthday. I found her on my 21st birthday.
Wow.
It's creepy.
Now, was it just like a little grave marker with her name on it? That was it?
It was pretty decent size. It's actually the nicest one that's probably there, but it's very much slanted and there's kind of a hole. But I was like, I'm not touching that because, like, I don't know if I'm going to get in trouble. And I actually went to our municipal building like a crazy person and complained about it. I'm like, listen, like, you got to do something. Like, I don't know what you guys have to do, like, or hire someone. I said, but it's really disrespectful, to those people, because I did notice that there's people that put American flags there. So I guess that there were soldiers in there too.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really sad. Like, those people once served our country, and now they're living underground in trash. And it just bothered me. So they actually did. I spoke out enough, and I went to the paper, and they actually have it now cleaned, and people go there regularly now. So it's really nice. And, that's where the infrared picture comes from.
Right.
Is
so,
that
Jared,
leading into that.
Let's skip number 7. We'll go into 8 because that ties into what she's talking about right now.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So you were in a book titled The Haunting of Sussex County, and you talk about a woman named Mary. Can you tell us about Mary?
Yeah, so that's where it was starting, to lead up to, was right there in that moment when I found her, and it just, everything hit really quickly, and I was like, whoa, this is crazy. So then I did some research. I went home because I was like, okay, she wants something from me. I don't know what it is, but there's something. Because I thought maybe just cleaning, the house, like the little house area, I call it a house. It's not a house, it's a graveyard, but to her, it's her home now.
Mm-hmm.
But, I had them clean it up or whatever, and I was like, that could be it. That could be it. But no. And this is where things got really wild for me, is that every night I go to bed. Now, I'm very OCD and I'm a huge germaphobe. I have things organized like you wouldn't imagine. It's unnatural at this point. And when I would go to bed, I'd wake up. My room was in shambles. Just mess. And I'm like, what the heck? So my friend was part of the paranormal group, but I wasn't involved in it yet. And I asked him, I'm like, this has been happening for a week. And I'm like, I have three-pound chihuahuas. Like, what? They're not going to do this damage. They can't even reach half the things that are being moved. So, that's when he's like, oh, leave a pencil and pen by your bed. Maybe we'll get something. Well, surely enough, the next morning there was a scribble. The room was not touched. And I was like, it's unreadable, but hey, we're figuring something out. So I decided to look up research on her because her last name was on it too. And I'm Google searching it, and I found out that her husband and her son were buried there. And I'm like, okay, that's something. So I, of course, going back to the municipal building, these people, I think I'm like banned from there now. They probably think I'm crazy. I was like, listen, I'm like, it's going to sound crazy. I said, but there's a woman, Mary, that's buried there. I said, do you know, like, is there death certificates that I can get a hold of? I said, is there, markers to know? I said, her son and her husband. And I gave full name and date and everything. And they said back then in 1811, they didn't keep records like that. Like, that wasn't a thing back then. So I was like, okay. And I brought my pendulum now because I'm like, okay, now the pieces are finally starting to like click with me. And I went there and I was walking around and it was swinging, like it was going. And I asked her, like, do you know where your son and your husband are? And it swung no. So I was like, bingo. Okay, that makes sense. She wants to know where they are because she died first. So I was like, okay, her son died at 18, and then I think her husband was like 24-ish. So everyone was relatively young. So I was like, okay, she doesn't know where they are. The next problem I ran into is that these tombstones are in piles of broken stone. I don't know how to fix that. And with no history of the background, there was nothing I can do. And I told her that. I was honest. I said, Mary, listen, like, they're in piles like of just stone, and I don't know what you really want from me. So I went there and I brought her these flowers and I stuck them there, these fake flowers, and there was cobwebs on it, so I dusted it off. When I went home, I was showering and I look at my finger, and that's when the encarvement on my finger came. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, what the heck is that? And I'm looking, I'm like, that looks like words to me. And I thought it was crazy. I jumped out of the shower and I'm like, Mom, look at this. And she's like, no, those are words. So I took a picture, and then 20 minutes later, it was like gone. So I asked my friend Brian, I said, can you put this under infrared or something? And surely enough, in the picture, when you blow it up in the infrared, it says pile. And I'm like, oh my God, she's probably telling me that, yes, one of them is in a pile. But without her knowing or me knowing, there was like no connection. So unfortunately, I still to this day never found her husband or son.
And the cemetery doesn't keep records of who's buried there?
No, there's
That's weird.
Nothing there. It's so old.
Wow.
And unfortunately, I had to tell her, listen, like, there's nothing I can do. I'm like, you have to have some kind of respect for me here. I said, because there's physically nothing. I said, I did everything I could, and I'm still going to visit you. But still to this day, after every storm, those fake flowers are still vibrant, and they've never moved through storms, through snow. They stayed.
And how long ago was this?
Probably 6 years ago, 10 years ago.
Okay.
And they're still there.
And does she still talk to you?
She lets me know when she's around. She moves things in my house.
Okay. So she's attached to you. How do you think she followed you home?
Probably when I was there, I had forgot to say, don't follow me home.
Okay.
So I think she was just like, oh, open invitation. I'm just going to go with you. So luckily she was the only person that did attach to me. But that was on my part.
How many tombstones are like in rubble? Is there a lot that's why you can't figure out who's who?
A lot, yeah. It's a small area, but it's probably as big as like this room would be, maybe a little bit bigger than this room.
Okay.
But there's so many little tombstones. Like some of them look like just stone. Like you would just walk on them thinking it's a rock. Like,
oh wow.
It's so hard to see who belongs where. Only some of them are upright intact, which are the pictures I sent you. That those black and white pictures are that graveyard.
Okay, so that was okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So
all the pictures in the book are that graveyard.
Oh, cool. So how did you come to be in this book?
So the woman actually was fostering an animal for my mom. And of course, I have a very gothic aesthetic and all my tattoos and stuff. So I always somehow end up people just asking me questions like, oh, like, what are you into? It's always the same awkward conversation for people. And they always make it awkward. I don't know why. It's like they think they're going to insult me or something, but they never do. She came up to me and she's like, you must be into horror, like the way you're dressing. And I'm like, yeah, I am. She's like, well, I write books for Sussex County and then some. She's like, so, have you ever heard of it? And I was like, honestly, no, I haven't heard the book. But I think it's really cool. I said, I have a connection to the dead and I actually have a story myself. And she was like, done deal. I'm recording you. We're meeting up for lunch. I'm going to record you on a recorder and I'm putting you in the book. We're taking pictures. And there was just history from there. She was so excited about it because it was one of the biggest stories that had happened like in the area for me.
Oh, nice.
It was really cool.
Very cool. And could we be able to find this book like on Amazon?
I believe it's on Amazon. I think if you Google search it, it comes right up. Okay. I think she has a website too.
Oh, very nice. You can give her a plug if you want, the author.
Oh, Eleanor. Her name is Eleanor Wagner.
Okay, Eleanor Wagner. Okay. All right. So in continuation with the paranormal, you had mentioned that you were a part of some groups. So how did you come to be involved? How did you find them?
So I found them because I was friends with the one guy, Brian, and we're still very close to this day. If you guys ever want him on a podcast, I can definitely. He studied demonology, so like
there you go, Jared.
He helps me a lot because going into it was very different for me. You know what I mean? There was different emotions. I didn't know how to turn off that blocker, like how to stay strong in certain situations. Because if there's a spirit that someone's attached to, I will feel how they die, and it's very brutal. And at the event, the paranormal event, ironically, my mom was sitting at the table with one of her longtime friends, and I sit down, and all of a sudden I was like, oh, my heart just started hurting. And I look at her and I'm like, your grandfather died of a heart attack. I was like, and it was horrible. And she started bursting into tears, and she's like, yeah, he did. And I was like, I'm sorry to tell you, I just blurted it out without even thinking. Like, it just kind of just hit me because I felt him there. Like, he was like behind her. Um, and I couldn't get rid of that heart pain. I was like, this is terrible. I'm like, I feel like I'm going to die now. So my friend Brian, because he's been doing it for so long and he really dives deep into everything, he like put his hand on my back and he's like, I'm going to try and transfer energies here. He's like, I don't know if it's going to work. He's like, but I want to take your pain off of you to me because I know how to mask these things and you don't. So he was able to do that. And I did feel relief. There was still a tightness in my chest though, but the pain wasn't there. But yeah, I literally give all my paranormal experience credit to Brian because he was incredible. Like one of the smartest people I think I've met in the world of paranormal. He's done it all. He's went to what was that big war? Gettysburg. He went there.
Okay.
He's done Greystone. We've went to Greystone.
Grace. Okay, nice. Now
So,
Gettysburg, that's not just anyone can go there. You have to get written permission. So
and he did. Yeah.
That's nice.
He was one of the high ranked ones. He still does it, just not as frequently. He said that anybody who gets involved in paranormal, if you guys are involved at all with it, it's exhausting and it becomes very obsessive and it becomes very dangerous if you don't know when to walk away. So that's why I don't do it anymore. I just let them come to me now.
Gotcha. So what was the name of the group that Brian and you were a part of?
It was Central Jersey Paranormal. Yeah.
Okay.
They live in Central Jersey.
Okay, so you mentioned Greystone. And what are some of the other maybe places people might have heard of that you investigated?
A big one, I don't know about outside of New Jersey, but we went to the Gingerbread Castle in New Jersey.
Where's that at?
Hamburg.
Okay, where's that at?
So it's in Sussex County.
Okay.
And it's creepy. That place, still to this day, I don't like going to. It gives me this awful feeling. It's constant people watching you.
So why is it called the Gingerbread Castle?
It's literally a gingerbread castle.
Really?
It's it was for children.
Okay, so it was like an amusement park?
But it went bad. There was multiple children that went missing. There was a lot of satanic rituals. Actually, across from it was a nightclub. And there was underground tunnels. And a lot of freaky things went down, like murders and things like that. So there's so much negative energy there. And every time I go, I get chilled. I have chills right now and I wish you could see them because it's such an unsettling feeling that now there's surveillance motion cameras because people have gone there so often because of how enormous it is.
Okay.
And there's also a factory next to it too, a working factory where it blew up and killed a lot of people too.
Damn. We gotta look into this stuff, Jared, and do a episode on it. So can you still like get into those tunnels or are they blocked off now?
I'm not sure. I believe you can still go in the tunnels. I went through one of them and it was funny because we all have the head cams and the chest cams and things like that. And we're sitting outside this creepy balcony talking and we went there. We didn't really go in because all of us were like, no, there's just something uneasy there. And when we sat there, I heard a man say hello to me. And I'm like, did you guys hear that? And they're like, no, we didn't hear anything. Literally that night, he messages me, sends me the recording. You hear a guy say hello, and then 5 seconds later, you hear me go, did you guys hear that?
Wow.
He was like, well, I guess you did hear it, Ashley, because, it's right there on the recording. And that's where that picture was taken, where that little goblin creature.
That's the gingerbread castle. So that's a good ginger. I'm like, what the hell kind of structure is this? Because it looked like to me like something out of Alice in Wonderland, like that creature.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys are physically able to see this in the camera, but it's a huge castle.
Oh yeah, that is cool. So
it is creepy.
So obviously it's not in business. I mean, is it open to the public for tours? Like, how do you get to go in there?
You don't. It's completely closed off now. Someone had bought it and they want to like build it back into a children's amusement park. But every time someone goes in there, like construction workers are like, no, it's not worth the money. So it's just still standing there. And it's so incredibly creepy. I actually did a 24-hour stream on my Twitch And I went there to show people, and I didn't leave like my car. I stayed on the street because, again, there's motion cameras everywhere detecting your move. Like,
Right.
it's pretty high tech in security now. So I was like, but I wanted to show everybody because it's such a huge like thing in New Jersey. And I was showing them, and I'm recording on my phone, like my live stream. And out of nowhere, I'm like, man, I wish something cool would happen, like a sound or something. And all of a sudden, in the corner, you just hear this chains just rocking. And I was like, oh my God, I started cursing them. So I'm like, did you guys hear that? And they played it back in a capture. And I have that recording still. I can probably email it to you.
Yeah, definitely.
And you hear it clear as day, just chains. And there was no one there. Like, there's no one on that street anymore. Like, there's nothing.
I had the same occurrence to me up in Bordentown. I forget where the hell we were at, but we were in a big field. There was like a creek adjacent to us, and we had heard there was some paranormal activity on this road that we were on, and out of nowhere, just like chains hitting like a side of like a metal roof or something.
Mm-hmm.
And it would, 5 or 10 seconds, and then it would stop. And then as soon as we got to like where the river was, the creek, it just came out of nowhere. And the two guys I were with booked. I was the only one that stayed back. And
yeah,
that was pretty creepy. So any other places that people might have heard of or notorious for you, like a lot of activity?
I actually got invited to the Conjuring house.
Oh.
But I declined because a lot of people who said that gifted and paranormal things will attach to, and it's not relatively good. And I was like, I'm not interested. Thank you for the offer. Like, they were willing to have a stay overnight, and I was like, no.
So the owners of the house, the current owners, contacted you?
I don't know if it's the same owners anymore, but whoever it was, unless it's the same owners, I don't remember like the details of it. But I was like, no, I'm good. No.
So Jared, is it me or did her screen turn a different color?
It's a completely different color when she showed the picture.
I thought it was my eyes. When you showed us the gingerbread castle, your screen is now like a blue.
Yeah, it's a webcam one. I'm gonna be upgraded to a DSL camera. That's why it's the color. It looks blue, but my room is purple. It makes no sense.
Well, no, it just got when you showed us the picture, it just went a different color. So I was just like, whoa, my eyes. Well, that's pretty cool. I mean, for you, so obviously they heard about you from someone.
Yeah,
so that's pretty. That's like me.
It was cool.
It's like someone saying, "Hey, we saw your pictures. Do you want to be a stunt double? We're making this Friday the 13th movie." You know?
Yeah.
And I just got to say, well, make sure you get the angle right because I'm short.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's cool.
So let's go back a little bit, and then we'll go into the other questions. Let's Jared have some.
I do.
Now you can read people, correct? Like when you first meet them, like you can get a sense. When I first met. Did your senses kick in or no?
So it's funny that you mentioned that because I wanted to bring it up through our messages, but I was like, I'll wait till the podcast. But it's weird. I get like these auras. In terms of seeing if somebody's like dead with you, it's always a hit or miss. I could hang out with you 1,000 times and not feel a thing, and then that one day it appears because again, they reveal who they want to. So when I first met you, I was kind of like, all right, first of all, this guy has like this like yellow like aura, like very positive, very good energy, like it was almost like an instant trust in a sense. And I was like, this is really cool. Like, this is someone that I can absolutely vibe with. And then when we were doing all the photos and stuff, I was like, man, like, there's something paranormal-ish about this guy, but I didn't pinpoint it yet. But I was thinking, I was kind of getting the feeling that you might have been gifted like me as well, like being able to see and maybe not know, because I've done that with people too. They didn't know that they were gifted until I took them places and they were like, I'm seeing what you're seeing, hold on. And I was like, surprise, you're gifted.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I have to think about that one. I mean, at least I know I'm yellow. That's good.
Yeah.
When I think of yellow, I think of warning. But
no, yellow's a great sign to have. Like, it's a good aura color.
Good. Well, that's good to know. I mean, the only thing I can think of is I've had some things happen around me. I think I've told Jairus this one time when I had a house about 15 years ago, where I was living at, I was in the bedroom, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with the old tube TVs, but when you would turn them off, sometimes they would have a flash of
Oh
light.
yeah. Oh yeah.
And where I was sitting in my bedroom, the living room was completely dark, and I would see this flash of light.
Mhm.
I'm like, that's interesting. So I said, let me just set up a camera as I'm sleeping, see if I can pick up on anything, any voices. And I did hear people talking, but I couldn't make it out. But I always hear voices like as I'm getting ready for bed, as I'm like getting ready I'm in bed and everything. Like I can hear people call my name as if someone wants to have a conversation.
Probably shadow people.
Okay.
Sounds
But
like shadow people.
and I always feel, and this doesn't happen all the time, maybe half a dozen times,
Mhm.
I see someone out of the corner of my eye,
Yeah.
and that's really the only thing paranormal. Now, I did have a UFO occurrence
Oh, that's cool.
where I did see a UFO over 20 years ago, and where I live, we live by the tech center, which Jared knows. He's conspiracy theorist and thinks there's a lot of things going on over
Love
there.
that stuff.
But I legit, it wasn't like a new jet that they were working on, unless their jets can hover and don't make sound,
Mhm.
and don't have lights. And you
Mhm.
always have that what if scenario. What if I just stayed behind and
Mhm.
went under and said, beam me up, But then I think
Yeah.
about the negatives, like Fire in the Sky. If you've ever seen that movie, freaky ass movie, and I don't want to go through that experience.
Yeah, I
But
don't blame you.
so as I'm in my Jason costume, when we were taking photos, did I still have
Mhm.
that aura?
Yeah.
Like,
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
man.
Something about paranormal, something with you. I was like, man, I'm like, this guy's probably gifted and doesn't even know it. Yeah, it's weird
Interesting.
because a lot of people, again, most people are gifted with something, but of course, what do your parents tell you? Imaginary friends, they're
Hmm.
not real. And
Yeah.
you're closing off that third eye
Right.
where it's the innocence, that is
Nah,
able to see.
my parents weren't like that. My imaginary friend, his name was Mac, and I mean, I don't remember what we talked about, but my
Mhm.
parents, they didn't say that.
Yeah.
They fed into my imaginary friend.
Yeah. Oh yeah, my mom was like, oh, it's dead people.
All
Didn't
right,
care.
Jared, I'll turn it over to you for some questions.
Well, she kind of answered my one by saying she can't always, like, say if I came to you, can you always read a dead one around me or no?
No.
Okay,
If anyone tells you that, that's bullshit. They're lying to you. They're
I
just trying to
gotcha.
take your money at that point because they don't always stay with you. They come and go.
I
They're
gotcha.
they're free spirited. A lot of people always are like, "What's with me?" And I'm like, "Don't work that way unless we're doing a summoning right now." Can't tell you.
Yeah, my mom went to a medium about 10 or so years ago, and he was published in a book. And he, because she wanted to speak to my aunt, my grandmom, who had passed away with like 3 years of each other. And he was like, yeah, your mom's here. And she said to let Brian know she's always with him. I'm like, always with me? She wasn't with me when she was alive. But it was really eerie. What really made me eerie was he was like, I see, like, she's talking about blueberries. Ask him about that. That day I had a blueberry muffin at work. That was creepy.
Whoa.
So yeah.
Yeah, some people are legit. I run into a lot of people who constantly they'll pick at you for questions, and they're like, "Oh, well, this." They try to get the answers out of you without. The problem with people who are readers, the fake ones, they're so smart that they know how to twist it and read you. That they're like, "Oh, I can sense a sadness," and then the person will give a reaction. They're like, "I can feed on this." Me when I'm doing it, I don't ask questions. It's silent. There's nothing, or I'll tell them like what how the process is. But the thing that gets people a lot is that I always can tell with great description what they look like. It freaked out my most recent ex I had. We were laying in bed, he was reading something, and I was on my phone, and I jolted up, and I was like, oh my God. I was like, your grandfather died in a red flannel. I'm like, he has kind of big ears. He has these giant Dahmer glasses. I said, and he has a huge smile with like these blue jeans and a black leather belt. And he was like, what? Because he thought I was crazy. He was not. Well, I'm single now, so that makes sense. But there was he was kind of like, how did you know what he looked like, and how did you know what he was buried in? And I was like, oh, I didn't know all that. I said, but I see him. He's here. Like, he's in the corner watching us. Like, and he pulled out a picture, and it was the exact like description. Sometimes it even blows me away. Like, I'm just like, whoa, calm down, Ashley. Like, it throws me off sometimes, because it's the amount of things that's happened in my house, and then just to other people, like through my personal readings, it blows my mind every time.
So I guess, okay, so since you mentioned like a boyfriend, is that like something you tell them right off the bat, like when you first meet someone?
Oh yeah, I want
Yeah.
them to know all the problems they're getting into before being with me.
So I wonder if it makes the potential suitor nervous. Like I mean, like they're probably like, oh man, I got my P's and Q's because she'll know what I did today, or and is that
Yep,
how it is? Like
it
you're like a basically like human lie
it is.
detector, right?
It is too, because it's funny with my most recent ex, he was doing things that we had agreed that not to do. Involving like social media and like looking at other women and like liking their posts, but he was trying to be sneaky about it. And I knew it. I like saw it, and then I asked my pendulum. I was like, "Is he doing this, 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 this?" And it said yes. And I messaged him. I'm like, "Hey, why are you doing this?" And he's like, "I'm not." And I was like, "Yes, you are." I said, "You're lying to me. I can tell." I'm like, "You're literally talking to a witch. You don't think I know this already?" So surely enough, he tried to be smart, but little does he also know I went to IT school. So, you know, I went through his phone, and he deleted his Google history, but he didn't know that you have to go into Google to delete your history that you deleted through your saved trash for 8 months. So I was like, really? I said, so what about all this? And he was like, oh crap. So it's really intimidating for guys, because I always nail it on the head. And when they see it, and then when I prove it, they're kind of like, okay, I can't pull a fast one on her, because every time, like, it's so quick. I will literally be in my room, and with all my friends that I have like a human, like, face-to-face connection with, I can tell if they're having a bad day. Like with my best friend Chris, I will sit there and I'm like, oh, I'm like, what is he going on right now? And I'll message him, I'm like, what's wrong? And he's like, how do you do it? And I'm like, it's just this feeling, this overwhelming feeling of emotion, because I'm empathic. So it's weird. It's really weird. But it's cool.
So
I love it.
so you could say it's a blessing and a curse at the same time, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
As long as you know how to turn it off. Yeah.
Gotcha. Jared, do you have any more for paranormal?
um, so does this hit you every day, or just
It
depending
depends
on
where I go.
where you're at?
Yeah. I really don't leave my house. I'm kind of a hermit.
Me
But
too. That's fine.
When I do, I can tell you it's something.
Your wallpaper matches the Satanic Temple in Salem, by the way.
Oh, does it?
Yes.
Yeah. No, this is actually this is a gothic vintage like scone thing that I found. It's a wallpaper.
It's nice, but I noticed that the whole Salem, the whole
Oh yeah.
Satanic place was covered in that wallpaper. I thought it was beautiful.
I know. That's the problem with today's movies and everything. They turn just vintage into creepy, and I'm
Yeah.
just like, stop putting the pentagram upside down. It means nothing. It's not satanic. Leave it alone. So that's the big issue I have with scary movies these days, is they try to do religion, but they do it wrong. So I'm just like, wrong, wrong,
I gotcha.
which is annoying.
So, do you provide services such as seance or tarot card readings or any kind of readings or anything like that?
I do. So I do palm readings, and I can offer those online because it's just a picture of like the front and back of your hand. I offer regular for yourself pendulum readings, and then paranormal to connect with past loved ones or past friends. But the paranormal ones have to be in person, and so does the pendulum readings. All the pendulums have to be in person, because I have to hold it and the person has to hold it.
I gotcha. So, with the paranormal readings, I would guess that's kind of hit and miss because you don't know if they're always around the loved one they're trying to reach.
Oh no, I pull them in the circle.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah, no, I summon those people. They come
So-
right in.
When you summon them, like, do you see a portal, like, or do they just appear?
They just appear out of nowhere. It's
Okay.
like I'm just in the room and then they're there.
Hmm. So if I wanted to come to you, not so much for past loved ones, but like, could you tell me, could you do you do services like where you could say who you were in a past life?
It could answer it. Yeah. The only thing you can't ask is like, when will you die, or when will my pet die, or when my loved one die?
Yeah,
Because,
I don't like to know about that.
well, it won't answer you. It'll just stay
Yeah,
straight. It won't swing any
right,
which direction, because again, in the world, they believe in that whoever you preach to, that's the time that it's supposed to happen.
right.
You can't just
Yeah,
tell them.
I was always, because my mom, when she went to that medium, he could tell her like who, like, not so much a name, but like what era she lived in or how she died. I
Mhm.
always thought that was kind of interesting. Like, I don't know. I'm a big fan of like the Wild Wild West. So I was like always
Mhm.
wondered if that was like one of my past lives. And then,
That'd be cool.
oh yeah, I mean, I always envisioned myself riding with like Billy the Kid or Jesse James. But
That's
another thing,
great.
I have a big love for Charlie Chaplin.
Mhm.
And when I saw the movie, I became fascinated with him. Like, I wanted to read everything I could about him. And then my mom's like, I feel like you're like the reincarnation,
No,
like,
that's cool.
yeah, well, I mean, hey, Charlie was a ladies' man too,
Hey, there we go.
But no, I just love that era of Hollywood too.
Mhm.
It's just because that era of Hollywood just fascinates me with all the mysteries and the cover-ups and whatnot. But
Oh yeah.
now I'm sure you get this all the time. This question just popped up to me. Oh, if you can talk to the dead people and see things, how come you don't play the lottery? Like,
Because it's different. That's the thing. That's just, I guess, just if you're lucky. I'm not that lucky because,
is
well,
it bad juju though if you have those abilities and you know
yeah,
what the number? Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. If you use it for personal gain, yeah. Again, it goes back to the threes. If you do something selfish, it's going to come back at three and get you. So, I always tell people when they're like, the number one thing is people are like, oh, I want spells for money. And I'm like, well, that's just greed. And you're going to get in trouble. You'll either lose your bank, you'll lose your car, your house, like something bad will happen. I'm not going to tell you
So
what to
I
do.
could come to you and say, "Hey, I'm having back pain. Do you have anything that you could do for me to help with that?"
There is services that you can do for it. Yeah. There's not so much. There's a how do I put that? There's a natural healing that you can do with certain crystals and certain different energies. Like, for example, my a bunch of my friends who are female, when it's that time of the month for them, they get the very bad cramps and lower back pain, and they're dying. And I'm able to, and it's really crazy too, and I wish you guys were here to experience it because it would be so cool right now. But I'm able to heat up my right hand, like, by myself.
You're like the Human Torch.
It's weird. It's
That's
it's cool though, because I'll clench it, not like a ball, but I'll clench it like that, and if I focus, I'll feel it heat. And if someone puts their hand there and not touch my hand, you'll feel the
oh
heat
wow.
radiation. And I usually will put my palm there on somebody, and I'll go into like a meditative state, and I usually help with their pain through that. Does it always work? No. Obviously, if someone's bleeding out, I can't like magically snap my fingers and heal it, which I wish I could, but I can't do things like that. But in terms of like back pains or like, things like that, there's definitely crystals, there's yoga, meditation, breathing techniques. It all comes hand in hand. It's really like just a natural way of living when it comes
Okay.
to witchcraft.
All right, Jared, do you have any more questions before we wrap
Like
this up?
4 billion. But so say someone wants a reading of a dead loved one, what would you normally charge for that? Because I could cook really good too. I mean,
So honestly, it depends on how long the session goes. I'm usually very like easygoing. I usually say for every half hour would be $30. Um, just because there is that potential. Like, for example, if someone doesn't come through, I don't charge them. I'm just like, no, listen, I'm sorry. Like, I'm not gonna charge people. That's the one thing I don't like about people, is that they're very expensive. Even with palm readings, simple palm readings, they want like $40. I charge $5. Like, I don't understand why people are charging so much. Like there's zero reason to charge that much. The reason why I do 30 for 30 kind of is just because it does take a while. It also affects me because I can feel how those people like pass, or things will move in their house. I'm able to bring them closure. There's a lot to it, and sometimes I'll start shaking, like, and I have to stop so because I'm overwhelmed or stimulated with it. So that's usually what I do. But I mean, the longest I've sat with someone was for 4 hours, and it was she got all her questions in because it was for her aunt, her uncle, and her 5-year-old son who drowned. So
Ugh.
yeah, it was
So
wild because all his baby toys turned on in the room after I asked him to turn them on, and I was like, Thomas the Train, and she started crying. It was his favorite toy. Like, I can only break out a few things from him because he was 5 years old. It was very hard to. I've never dealt with a child, but it was interesting, but very hard to communicate with.
So when you pull them through the portal, how often can you tell how they died? Is it every time?
It's almost every time.
Okay.
And even so, like, say I was to walk into like your room right now, Jared, and say you had like a I don't even know, like an aunt or something that like died of some kind of cancer or something, I could walk in and be like, oh yeah, this is how it was. Like, but it won't always be like that.
I gotcha.
Sometimes it's within that circle. Because I also come with, like, I have to put everyone in the circle. Once you're in it, you can't leave it. Like, I put salt around, I put crystals around, like, there's a whole experience. But it's never been a negative one. It's always been really, really cool, and everyone has loved it.
Cool. I'll message you after this. We'll have to talk about some stuff.
And I can vouch for his cooking too.
Perfect. Perfect. We'll have to get together and do some kind of seance. People are gonna think we're crazy.
Nah, it'll be fine.
Before we go into the last question, we'll let Ashley have the floor. You and I had talked briefly about a fundraiser for October. So you do an animal rescue. Do you want to briefly talk about that?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for that. Yeah, we were nonprofit, completely nonprofit. My mom is a huge animal lover, and so am I. And one day she came to me and she's like, "You want to just save animals?" And I was like, "What?" And she was like, I want to, I'm interested in this dog. I want to foster her. Her name is Bella. We still have her." And she's like, "I want to foster. I want to be a foster." So she did, and she fell in love with her, and she was a foster fail, and it inspired the thing. So we were driving, and she's like, "I want to start an animal rescue." She's like, "But I don't want to make profit." She's like, I want to help. Because Lord, if I told you the stories of the things I've seen, oh my God, between paranormal witch and animal rescue, we'd be here for years. It's also not for the faint of the heart either. So, we were saying that, she's like, "What could the name be?" And all of a sudden the song Safe and Sound came up. And my mom's like, "Oh my God, Safe and Sound." So it started, and then, we do random little fun like raisers to raise money, because obviously you need money for like medical bills, because we take in abuse and neglect cases. So it's pricey. It's not cheap. So we do fundraisers for that. So we try to do, obviously for COVID, we were shut down for a while. There was nothing we can do. And, my mom loves the creepy stuff. And actually, with the event that I asked you to be a part of, I believe that paranormal group that I was part of, they want to come back and kind of do like a little like grand reveal again of like, seeing who can still come there. Because like I said, the stories with those guys alone, like if it's not a podcast, I'll tell you guys in personal calls, because it's incredible, honestly. And she was like, "Why, let's do the fundraiser for Creepy." And I was like, "I am down. I'm doing it all." And it's cool. I actually sent your picture to this local donut shop that I love. They do mini donuts, and they sent me a picture back. They're going to be putting Jason's face as a raffle for a big box of donuts with Jason's face on it. So that was really cool. They're going to donate it as a raffle, and I was pumped. I love this place. It's really cool.
Nice.
I think the last thing I wanted to bring up to you guys before, like, you guys obviously are closing out, is do your research on Colby's mansion in Byram, New Jersey.
In Byram, New Jersey?
Yeah, if you want to talk about some real messed up things, Ooh,
All right, definitely take a
yeah.
look at that. I'll
Oh
look that
yeah.
up before I go to bed. Be my reading material to help me fall asleep.
It's hard to find articles these days, but it's shut down again.
Oh,
Hmm.
nice. Okay.
Yeah.
But just real quick to go back to the fundraiser, we set the date for October 7th,
Yeah.
which is a Saturday. So save the date, everyone.
I'm so
And
excited.
Jared won't be able to partake
Brian, you
because
got that one.
Oh
he's
no.
he's a haunt reviewer. So September, October, those are his busy months.
That's
Oh
another
So
yeah.
question I have for you. Being kind of the same area, just a couple hundred, like 50, 100 miles apart. Do you go to any haunted attractions in the season?
Um, I don't like fake things jumping out at me. I have a habit of hitting and like shoving. So I try not to. I
Understood.
did go to the Paranormal Circus. If you guys have never been
oh,
there,
I did
highly,
that. Yeah.
highly recommend.
Where did
Very,
you
very
go and
fun.
see them?
Rockaway.
Okay. Yeah, I went
It's
I think it
amazing.
was 2019. They were in Mays Landing, New Jersey, and we got like ringside tickets and
Oh
everything.
yeah,
And
same.
the story was their theme was vampires. So I don't know if it was
Mm,
different for you, but
yeah,
man, was it great.
yeah.
And just like the audience interaction, like before, during intermission, but just the the athleticism on these people to do these various things, and the storytelling was great too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the music was great. All right, so
Fun.
last question, and we're gonna let you have the floor. So we talked earlier about you make items available for people for healing and whatnot. I recently saw that you did like a bracelet that helps with anxiety and depression. If I wanted to like look at your inventory, do you have an Etsy store for these items?
I don't yet, just because I started it just recently. I actually, funny enough, when I met you, I became friends with one of the shop owners there in Blairstown, and
On Main Street, correct?
they're
Yeah.
hosting the New Jersey Witch Fest. So I'm vending there the first
Oh,
time.
when is that?
That is the 12th of this month.
Oh, it's gonna be. Where's it gonna be at though?
I believe some kind of some kind of building or something they rented out, but it looks
Maybe the
pretty
maybe.
big.
Because the only is it so it's in Blairstown.
Yeah. Mhm.
The only place I can think of is the Legion Hall.
It could
Uh,
be there. I have to
okay.
look at the. She just sent the address. I never looked it up yet to see like where it is, but I was like, oh, it's in Blairstown, so it's
Next time
fine.
you go to Blairstown, you should check out the old cemetery there, next to right on Main Street. It's if you go to Annie's Arches. So
Okay.
if you are coming from the diner, walking the back alleys, and you get on Main Street, take a right, and once you pass the arches to your left, you'll see Blair Academy. In the foreground is the cemetery. Now it's creepy looking. It has
Sure.
actual John Blair. Oh, what's his name? I forget his first name, but the founder of the town, he's buried there.
Oh wow.
And it was very creepy because my first time going there, they have a wheelbarrow with a shovel in it and a hole. They never, and it's still there, I think. They never finished digging the hole. Kind of creepy.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just like I like going to the old cemeteries just to look at the tombstones and
Mm-hmm.
everything. But
Yeah,
next time you
I
go there,
agree.
you should. I mean, it's a very steep hill to walk up, but
Oh,
it'd be interesting to see what you pick up there.
I
Yeah.
always pick up something everywhere I go, so probably something at some point.
All right. So, Jared, do you have any final questions before we let her have the floor?
No, I'm going to ask her some things once we hang up, though.
Okay.
Real quick.
Sure.
So now the floor is yours. So if you want to promote any of your social medias, you are on Twitch. So if you want to talk about that, be our guest.
Yeah, that is my main job is Twitch. I do have actually some Twitch clips of the paranormal activity that has happened in my house. I've actually heard this god awful. I pushed that thing right out of my house. I don't know where he came from, but during my live, I heard this crash behind me, and I went out into my living room, and my metal stand fell over, and all glass broke. And then
Mm.
I was like, all right, that's a little weird. But in the video, because I'm still live, like it would be like how we are now. And I come back and all the comments are freaking out and they're like, get out of your house. And I'm like, what happened? And we played it back and you just hear this grunt, this like
Mm.
awful. And it was eerie. And then you hear it right here in the room. And then you hear it walk. out my door. You hear the creaking of the footsteps because my floors are very creaky. I don't fix the creakiness in my house. I think it's funny because I think it's like a haunted house. So I don't fix it. So you hear the creaking walk out to where I was. And that's on my Twitch clips. But yeah, also, Jared, I do get some vibes from you. I'm not gonna lie. Not gonna lie.
All right, what kind of vibes we dealing with here?
Well, probably if I was to say anything, whatever you do, don't go looking for things that you shouldn't be looking for.
And he likes to look. Because Jared is a demonologist. I'm not sure if I told you that.
Sort of.
He's new.
A little bit. I heard a little bit of it, but I got this feeling beforehand of very much intriguement of the other side that I was kind of like,
And she just told me not to look, so
don't go looking for things that like, leave them where they are.
He's stumped.
Yeah, leave them where they are. But yeah, that's yeah, I mean,
it's probably all those damn dolls in your house, Jared.
Yeah, you're definitely a Freddy Krueger fan. I can see that.
Oh yeah.
Well, his wife's a doll collector, and she's got some creepy ones.
Oh,
so, and she's got a replica. If you ever hear of Robert the Doll,
no,
look him up.
No.
He's in Keys. What was that? Where's he at? Keystone, or what am I thinking of? Key West. And he's a real creepy 4-foot doll. It's a bear in a sailor's outfit. So we actually did an episode on him.
Oh, so cool. I'll have to watch that.
Yeah, Jared's at a loss of words.
I am.
Yeah. Well, like I said, anytime you guys want any questions or anything, I'm totally here. I have endless story. I could keep this podcast going for years.
Well, I gotta be up at 3:45 in the morning, so yeah, unfortunately. So where can we find you on social media, like for your Twitch, if you want to give out your Instagram?
So my Twitch and my Instagram are Ashley_Paige11. My Twitch is probably the best way to get a hold of me, because then when you go to my Twitch, there's a link tree. I go live on Mondays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays. I do Fright Fridays, where we all get together and watch a scary movie or a series, and we talk about it.
That's cool.
And then I'm off on Sundays, so that's probably the best to find me.
You said your job, correct?
Yeah, this is my full-time job as a gamer.
That's living a life right there. What are we doing wrong, Jared?
I tried a couple of years ago. No one wanted to watch me, so I went to Halloween Haunts full time on YouTube.
That's cool. That is cool, though. Honestly, there's a lot of connections that you guys could probably get a hold of for sure. There's a lot. There's these two YouTube guys called Sam and Colby. They just hit like 20 million subscribers. They're great.
On YouTube or Twitch?
YouTube.
God damn.
Bam.
They're two young guys that go on these things, but what I like about them is that they don't Hollywoodize anything. They're just YouTubers, and half the time they're like honestly, half the time we go to a haunted location, nothing happens.
I've seen them. They are honest. Like they don't try to Zach Baggins it. Mm-hmm. They oh, was that shots? Oh well.
Still good looking though.
So
that's what he's got going for him, is good looks.
Well, it was funny. Do you remember season 1? He was like a beanpole, and then season 2, I guess he did 7 million curls because then he just had biceps.
Like almost like the Jenko jeans.
The Jenko jeans and the big cross belt.
Yes, and the muscle shirt. You know,
the tight black muscle shirt.
He's selling someone's Camaro. Shit, who owned it? It was a serial killer or someone. I just saw it on Facebook today. He owns some notorious guy's Camaro, and he's selling it. I'm like, why are you selling all this stuff, Zach? Makes me wonder.
He's got nowhere to put it. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Well, Sam and Colby actually did a YouTube video at his place in Las Vegas, his museum.
I was there. That place is creepy.
Yeah, no, I was like, nah, good. Because, like, you know, that's the thing about spirits. Like, spirits can tell who can see dead people and who can't. So that's one. Like, if I go in a group and like I'm the only person, like, nah, I don't want that. You can keep that in your little Dubik boxes and your little contraptions. I'm good. Keep your devil chairs, your devil cars. I don't mess with that stuff. I just help people with their families and sometimes their pets.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Oh gosh, you would have me sobbing at my pets, then, man.
Probably.
I've lost so many great ones. So, all right. Well, Jared, if I don't have any more questions, I think I asked as much as I can think of right now.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
It's a lot.
Ashley, thank you so much for coming on.
Yes.
Don't hang up right
Thank you
away.
for having me.
Oh, of course.
Yeah,
This was a
absolutely.
blast.
Yeah, no, this is a lot of fun.
We're going to have to do a part 2.
Yeah,
There's a lot of different, like I said, Colby's Mansion, for sure. I think we
Okay.
should touch on that, and then I could tell you guys my personal stories with my whole family. It actually goes back to my grandma's time. So
Oh wow. Okay.
yeah, that would be a really cool podcast, I think.
I wrote
All right,
it
definitely.
down. Well, guys, thank you guys so much for coming back. This has been another episode of the Horrorshed Podcast. We will see you next week.
Halloween Haunts 365 production.